Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today. A Virginia state trooper posed as a 17-year-old boy in an effort to groom and sexually exploit a 15-year-old California girl. Now, in this incident, which took place in Riverside, California, your 28-year-old Austin Lee Edwards, a Virginia state trooper, had gone to California to go out here and kidnap a girl who he had catfished online by portraying himself as a 17-year-old boy. Now, as he was going there to kidnap this girl, he murdered this girl's grandparents and her mother, then took this girl on the run, and eventually wound up being killed in a shootout with San Bernardino Sheriff's deputies. Now, the police are seeing this as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the behavior of Austin Lee Edwards, it fits the pattern and profile for cyber simps that I talk about in my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, and it also fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. Now, your Austin Lee Edwards was a cyber simp who became fixated on this 15-year-old girl, and as he became fixated on this 15-year-old girl, he then built a world around this girl and was so obsessed with that world that he wanted to go out here and have a physical interaction with this girl. And this type of behavior fits right in line with the pattern and profile of beta male behavior that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, in the chapter, The Sexual Deviancy of the Beta Male. Because as your beta male is out here building a world around a person, what they are doing is feeling like they have to go out here and you go and have that fantasy relationship with them, because they're not having a relationship with a real person. No, they're having a relationship with the fantasy that they created in their mind. And they create these fantasies in a place I call the secret world. And in that secret world, this is the place where your beta male feels secure about expressing his natural masculinity, because these men are extremely insecure and they don't have the confidence to go out here and have relationships with women in the real world. So they go to the place called the secret world, which is a place inside of their mind where they feel safe about expressing their natural masculinity. Now, many of these men, they feel so insecure about expressing their natural masculinity that they go to the secret world and they go to online spaces so that they can be the man that they want to be. Now, this Austin Lee Edwards, because he felt inadequate about himself as a man, went out here and pretended to be a 17-year-old boy in order for him to have a relationship with a underage girl. And what's really disturbing about this whole situation is that your Austin Lee Edwards was a member of law enforcement who knew what the law was as related to minors. And as somebody who knew what the law was as related to minors, that is what makes your Austin Lee Edwards behavior just that more disturbing, because he was willing to violate the law that he knew about with clear intentions of participating in a crime. And I guess he believed that he would be able to get away with this because as a police officer, he thought that he could create a covert contract with his fellow officers so that he could go out here and get away with this crime. And this is, again, typical beta male behavior, because your beta male wants to have a smooth world. And in order for him to have a smooth world, he needs people to go along with him. And that's what this individual thought he would do. Thought he would be able to get away with this, and he thought his fellow officers would cover him. However, your Austin Lee Edwards went out here and just showed how sick he was because not only did he break the boundaries as related to his oath as a police officer, he also broke the boundaries as related to his online relationship, and he just showed how just twisted he was, because as this individual became so fixated and obsessed with this 15-year-old girl who he was having a relationship with online, he just went out here and broke those boundaries by traveling all the way from Virginia, where he was working, to California, because he wanted to go out here and escalate his deviant sexual behavior. Now, this individual's behavior is sexually deviant, because only a sexual deviant is going to go out here and pretend to be a 17-year-old boy in order to have a relationship with a 15-year-old girl, because that clearly shows, again, in malice of forethought and willful and intentional attempts to prepare to sexually abuse a young woman. And this 15-year-old girl realized something was really wrong when this individual asked for her to give him sexually explicit photos, and that's when she cut off all contact with this individual. But your Austin Lee Edwards was so obsessed with her that he did not respect her personal boundaries, and what he did, I believe, is use the database that your law enforcement uses to look for a person's personal information, and he used that information to be able to find this girl's address, and that's when he further escalated his deviant sexual behavior and traveled over 3,000 miles all the way to your California, in Riverside, California. And when he traveled to Riverside, California, he wasn't coming there to meet her with good intentions. No, he had malice of forethought, and as he had malice of forethought, he wanted to go out here and be able to have this girl be a part of his twisted fantasies, and he didn't care about who was her guardians or her family, because as he came to her home, he then, I believe, pulled out a weapon, and then wound up tying up the mother and the grandparents, and then wound up murdering them in front of her. And then after murdering them in front of her, he then set her home on fire, and then took her into his vehicle and went to drive away and go on the run. Now, all of this is part of how your beta male behaves out here, because once a beta male participates in violent behavior like this in their secret world, what they want to do is erase any of the evidence so that they can have a smooth world. And what they do is that's why he wound up murdering the parent, the mother, and the grandparents, because he wanted to go out here and cover up all of the evidence, and he wanted to go to his secret place and participate in the sexual deviancy he planned to participate in with this 15-year-old girl. Now, he possibly would have gotten away with this girl hadn't it not been for a neighbor noticing this man's Kia in the driveway of this girl's home. And as he noticed the Kia in the driveway of this girl's home, they went out here and called the police, and then later on they found video of this man and leading this girl into his vehicle. So there was insurmountable evidence as related to the depraved behavior that this man had been participating in. And this state trooper, he then, as he was on the run with this girl, eventually ran into your San Bernardino Sheriff's deputies, and your San Bernardino Sheriff's deputies wound up having a shootout with your Austin Lee Edwards and wound up killing him, and eventually the girl wound up being saved by these law enforcement officers and came out of the whole incident physically unharmed. But I believe she's going to be suffering mental trauma for the rest of her life, because a innocent online connection she was trying to do with talking to a guy led to the deaths of her grandparents and her mother, and that is a scar that is going to stay with her for years. And this whole case really shows us why you need to be very careful when you go online, because there are a lot of online predators on there, and these cyber simps are some of the most dangerous individuals you will ever encounter online. Many of these cyber simps, many of these men, they do not live in reality. They don't know how to function in the real world, and because they don't know how to function in the real world, they go to places like cyberspace, and they go out here and build personalities and personas online. And if you don't really watch yourself, you can become a victim of these type of individuals, because these kind of predators, what they do is look for somebody to prey on, and that's really what this man wanted to do with this 15-year-old girl. He wanted to go out here and prey on this 15-year-old girl, because this pedophile, what he wanted to do was get a object to participate in his deviant sexual acts, because it really was not a relationship. No, when it comes down to these type of sexual predators, they are looking for objects to participate in their deviant sexual fantasies with, and they want to go out here and use a person like one of these sex dolls. That is what is sick about their behavior. And this man, again, he didn't really even care about his position as a law enforcement officer. No, he was just caught up in his deviancy that he wanted to participate in the secret world, because asking this girl for those photos was child pornography, and this man could have gone to jail for the rest of his life just on those charges of child pornography. But he didn't care about that, because it was all about him being able to participate in his deviant sexual fantasies. And he was so obsessed with participating in those deviant sexual fantasies, he was willing to even go as far as, again, using the law enforcement database to find this girl's address, travel 3,000 miles all the way to where this girl lived, possibly went out here and bought supplies to go out here and murder her mother and her grandparents, and then went out here and was willing to go on the run by kidnapping this girl. All of these things show me how sick and depraved this beta male was, and shows me how sick and twisted a beta male can be when he goes out here and gets a sexual miseducation. Because the core foundation for this type of sexual deviancy is the fact that we have a lot of these beta males who just get a sexual miseducation, and because they get a sexual miseducation, they believe that sexual deviancy is perfectly normal. And again, this is what we have online, because you have males who do not understand how to go out here and be able to function in a healthy sexual way due to the sexual miseducation they have received on places like the internet. And this is why this man was out here participating in this sick behavior, again, going to the secret world, looking to, again, use a person as an object. And after they use a person as an object, they want to go out here and cover up the evidence. So he would have not only killed her mother and her grandparents, he would have also wound up killing this girl had San Bernardino deputies not gotten in there in time, and wound up taking this piece of garbage's life and sending him straight to the shadow realm and hell, where he belongs. This type of pervert is a really sick individual, and what we're seeing these days, what I find to be quite troubling, is we're seeing more and more cases of these kinds of individuals. And as these individuals are out here, what we're seeing, again, due to that sexual miseducation they've received, they're sitting there thinking that their behavior is normal, but their behavior is really sick. And a lot of these men, they sit there all day watching online porn, and as they're watching the online porn, they're creating fantasies where they want to participate in sexual deviancy. And then as they're out here watching the porn, it doesn't become enough for them, and they escalate their behavior, and they go out here and they look for girls like this to go out here and prey on. And then as they're out here, they go out here looking to, in order to get their fantasies, they're willing to violate any sort of boundary. And again, what's really disturbing about this whole case is that this whole case shows us how these type of males violate the public trust, because again, this man made an oath as related to being a law enforcement officer and protecting people under the law, but this corrupt rogue officer was willing to violate that trust and that oath, all because he thought he was above the law, and he thought he was justified in being able to participate in sexual deviancy. Again, a covert contract he created with other officers that nobody was going to honor, because only the sickest of sick people would go along with this type of monster, because this man is a monster. Don't let anybody fool you. This guy was one of the sickest of the sick, and he's right in hell where he belongs, because this monster, he's just one of the worst I've seen out here. Because again, in order to go out here and go that far, I mean, this just shows you how sick and depraved this individual is. And what's even more troubling than this is that because we have a trend of these cyber simps escalating their behavior, he's just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more of these guys out here. And it's a scary thing, because the whole thing is, when you've got guys this sick, this just shows us how bad the man crisis is getting. And some of the sickest men out here who are a part of the man crisis are these sexually deviant beta males. And this whole case just is a textbook example of the evil these men are capable of participating in. Now, if you want to learn more about how to avoid predators like cyber simps, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, to learn how these cyber simps operate online and how they go out here and exploit and try to take advantage of girls out here. And if you want to learn more about what makes a beta male as dysfunctional, like an Austin Lee Edwards was, and what leads to them becoming dysfunctional to participate in this type of disturbing and deviant behavior, and why they participate in this behavior, you can pick up The Man Crisis on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and you can also, in other online stores like Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me be able to make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
Now available in paperback and e-readers. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback and e-readers everywhere at online booksellers today.